It's back and bigger than ever. It's the Unofficial 40 from Soonerscoop.com. Now, here's the entire Sooner Scoop crew. Carey, Josh, Eddie, and Bob.
All right, we are back. It is time for the Unofficial 40 podcast right here on Soonerscoop.com. It's another edition. It's the Spring Football Has Started edition. It's the Thunder are going to be in the playoffs, not the play-in. They're just they're destined for it after last night. It was a long day yesterday, but a good day. We had a chance to go out and check out the football team, see some of the new faces. You had baseball last night. Eddie and I were sitting here watching the game on ESPN Plus until we could tell that it wasn't worth watching anymore, and then we all went home. So anyway, glad to have you guys back in studio. The whole gang is here. And welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Eddie is doing his best to kill off everyone.
Well, it's just a survival of the fittest, I think, is probably the best way to say it. I've had this cough now for like a week, and it's starting to become a problem. I thought I was going to die this morning.
You sound beautiful this morning.
I know. There's something wrong with my voice. Like, I seriously, like, it's just stuck right here. So I don't know what's going on, but...
Maybe it's the concrete that was in the air for the last 2 weeks.
It could be.
You and I were both in here.
What's the stuff called that they always ran those commercials? Asbestos. Maybe I have that.
Mesothelioma.
Now that I'm finally back into the compound downtown...
you can just blame the company that screwed up your apartment.
Yeah, Belfour.
They probably poisoned
my arch nemesis. Well, I would like to say that they did a wonderful job in the rebuild, and I'm quite pleased with what they did down there.
So you're totally back to normal.
Yeah, well,
Have you unboxed and everything?
No, we're not out of the boxing stage yet. We're still in Box Town, so we got to get that done probably today and get all the pictures hung back up and all that kind of stuff. But we're close. I'm back in the apartment for sure.
Some boxes you'll never touch again?
There are a couple boxes that I went through that I just looked at and I said, I'm just going to take these down to the dumpster. I'm not even going to open this back up.
And you have a toilet, right?
And I have a toilet, yeah.
A working toilet.
Yeah, we are fully operational again. Feels good. It only took 3 months.
Well, I'm happy for you.
Thank you.
Happy that you didn't kill anybody and you still, can work here without the law coming to find you.
Well, I can't confirm or deny that that's correct.
You didn't kill anybody, all right? Let's just put it out there.
I might have put a body in Lake Thunderbird.
They're still finding bodies out there. They just found it at the, is it the Murdaugh house or something?
What?
Yeah, they found a 15-year-old that was murdered.
No, that's from back in the day.
Well, yeah, but now they're reopening the investigation.
The case. Yes. Stephen Johnson, yeah. Buster
Are they going to have to so that was a Netflix series before it went to trial?
No, they did the trial or the Netflix special came out during the trial.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's great.
So are they still adding to it?
No, there's not really a whole lot more to add. I mean, they went over the Stephen Johnson murder. It's believed that one of the sons, Buster, killed him. He might have been having a relationship with him, which I kind of believe.
I'll have to catch up on that.
It's good.
My Netflix...
We're trying to get the father, the guy that killed his wife and his son, allegedly. Mm-hmm. We're trying to get him on to do weekly picks on the radio show. He went 11-1 in prison.
So,
Alec.
Anyway, Alec. Is it Murdoch? Is it Murdoch?
Well, it's the way that, they pronounce everything in Low Country in South Carolina. I don't know.
Because it's spelled like Alex with an X, isn't it?
Yeah, but
it goes by Alec.
They pronounce it Alec. Yeah.
So I think the last name's the same.
They're a fun family.
Fun.
They are a fun family. There's no doubt about that.
All right.
South Carolina. That's the type of mentality Oklahoma fans are going to have to start processing before they make the move to the SEC.
As with everything on this podcast, going back to the very beginning, how do we distance ourselves from our current conversation to handle a sponsorship? That's the biggest question that we have now. But no, it is time now for our Enjoy Vision, fresh perspective look around as thank God we don't have to talk about basketball. I mean, women's basketball is worth talking about. That was a fine tournament performance that they put on. Jenny Baranchik and her daughter being the biggest star. Everybody fell in love
Jordy's
with her
the
family.
Queen of Norman.
Yeah. And deservedly so. I mean, she was fantastic, mic'd up, all that stuff. If you didn't see it, you missed out. But OU was a good team. They just weren't an elite team. And I mean, they were good. UCLA will get murdered by South Carolina in the next round.
You would imagine. They turned the ball over too much. They're going to need to fix that.
They also just don't have the athletes, I think, at some spots, defensively especially.
Well, especially everybody's complaining about, not enough 3-pointers, not enough shots from
Robertson.
Taylor
Robertson.
Yeah.
Like, she's just not athletic enough to get off a lot of shots against tournament teams.
Yeah.
Especially 4th-seeded teams. So,
Maddie Williams is a stud, though.
Yes.
She's great.
Really good.
She can get a shot, create a shot. I gotta be honest, I didn't watch a ton of OU women's basketball, but I was impressed by their bigs. I mean, they had some nice athletic bigs that could get up and down the court, but just wasn't enough. But I think Jenny Branchick will continue to recruit well, and she, to me, she's like a young Billy Tubbs. I mean, she just has those girls going up and down the court as fast as they can, probably beyond their own limits to quite a bit of an extent at times. But if she gets better athletes in there, that's going to be a really fun. I mean, I'd almost liken it to watching softball. Like, all of a sudden, that's a pretty good version of a team to watch go up and down the court. So, but women's basketball is over. Softball is hitting its stride. A big win at the Omni Classic. Is that what it was called? Up at Hall of Fame Stadium, taking care of Auburn, taking care of Weber State. Then there was a Florida State game thrown in there that before that they did very well. So they are riding high. Pitching, Jordy Ball seems to be kind of getting her stuff back a little bit. And then spring football gets underway yesterday. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But first, one thing that Eddie was able to do as he went out to practice yesterday was see the players, see their numbers.
Absolutely. And we have to thank Enjoy Vision for that because, a couple years ago, I would have been out there. It would have been windy. I would have been messing with contacts probably. No more. Go buy Enjoy Vision. I did it. It was easy. I was always kind of, I don't know about scared, but I was weary about putting these two eyeballs underneath a laser. And
it's like when they give you that test when the big burst of air is going to come and it just freaks you out.
Yeah. It was always kind of one of those things. I was like, I might do it. And then finally met with the folks at Enjoy. They took care of me. It was an easy process, in and out in one day. Couple lead up meetings before to kind of get prepared for it. And it literally was the easiest thing that I've ever done. So any Unofficial 40 listener, $400 off LASIK, go to enjoywithme.com, use the promo code U40 and save. Start seeing as good as me. That is the letter N, J-O-Y, with me.com, promo code U40. Enjoy Vision. This is where you LASIK.
And thank you to Enjoy Vision for still being our sponsor after last week and Eddie's tangents about why it's good to see. And
the Murdoch family would have got Enjoy Vision. Maybe they wouldn't be all in prison now.
I think murderers, regardless of whether you have good vision or not, that's still bad.
That's probably true.
I feel like the end of George. I feel like the end of the Guardians of the Galaxy here when they give them the ship back and they ask, what if I murder? What if I murder someone?
What's funny about this podcast is that we are constantly trying to get away from whatever Eddie is saying, but we also are constantly feeding Eddie to get him riled up.
You guys only entice me.
You're saying we're enablers?
Yeah, you are enabling
we
me.
spark the fire of
That's right.
That is Eddie.
I think that is exactly what it is.
All right, so spring practice, we were out yesterday watching, and I guess we'll just go around and kind of start with you, Bob. You got to the board and put your initial thoughts of what you saw out there, and notebook will be coming this afternoon as we're potting here on a Wednesday mid-morning. But Bob, take it away kind of with your first thoughts, your initial impressions of what you saw yesterday.
Yeah, I think it's just, you think about the running back and the receivers and you're like, who are these guys? And then it doesn't really hit home until you get out there and you notice, there's no Eric Gray, there's no Marvin Mims, and who are going to be the ones that are going to step up. And we're not so much worried about on-field production as much as who's going to lead the locker room. And, just seeing Marcus Major, he looks fantastic, but he always looks good until he gets injured. And then he's just a totally different player. So is he going to make that leap? Is it going to be Gavin Sawchuk, Javonte Barnes, and then seeing those receivers, Jaden Gibson, Nick Anderson, Andrel Anthony. Like, there's so many guys that you're wondering who's going to assert themselves during this next month that you feel a heck of a lot more confident about where they stand as you get ready to go into the season.
Well, George, I know you had an observation when we were coming back yesterday. It seems like DeMarco Murray knows that. Like, he knows he's got a young group. He's got a leadership void there a little bit. Because you said you heard him say some things at practice that were like, oh, DeMarco's taking this really serious right now.
He's I think, when did he get hired? Was he here when I was here? Or I think he came in maybe the year after I left. I don't know, but I haven't seen him up close coaching before. Mm-hmm. He's a hard ass. And I don't know if he typically is that way, or it's because they do have a young group led by, Marcus Major was the guy leading all the drills. And I think that DeMarco is kind of leaning on him to be that leader of the group. Is he going to be the number one running back? I don't know. I mean, it feels like Javonte Barnes is kind of that guy right now. Gavin Sawchuk is a guy that we saw play really well in the bowl game. So I think it's just Marcus is the oldest guy, and so DeMarco's kind of leaning on him. But, man, he laid into some of those guys. I mean, he ripped into Smothers at one point, Caleb Hicks. He even got after what's the walk-on's name from –
Chapman?
Yeah, no,
Walker.
Chapman?
No, it was Chapman. Kind of laid into him one time. It was interesting to watch because he's much more intense than I anticipated.
He's people that you talk to, they're like, just just off the field, like DeMarco's a very old school guy. Like, he believes in discipline, and he doesn't let anything slide. So
January 27, 2020.
Yeah, so I wasn't here. Or I had
when he was hired.
He got hired.
I just finished, yeah.
So yeah, I think he was at Arizona, right? Coaching for Sumlin at that point.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So Eddie, you're out there shooting. I guess one of the big things was Jackson Arnold. Just seeing him out there, what he looked like, and it is weird because you can't judge his stature. And he's a little bit bigger than Dylan Gabriel, but then Davis Bevel is out there just lording over everything.
Yeah, Davis is a big boy.
My God, he's so tall.
No, he is.
But what do you think about Jackson Arnold?
No, he looks the part. I think that's pretty obvious. Seen him quite a few times now throwing the football, and there is a very easy way that he goes about it. It just looks very comfortable to him. I spent a lot of time with the quarterbacks. Went over, spent a lot of time with the linebackers. I thought Deshaun McCulloch looks really good. Obviously, I thought that even somebody like Phil Picciotti looks the part. I thought Kobe McKenzie looks really good too. I made that comment when we came back over from
even
practice.
The bowl practices, you could see that he had made a lot of strides just body wise.
He just doesn't look like he. And I don't mean this in a negative connotation. It's he just doesn't look like a baby anymore. I don't know any other way to say it.
His body fat is down considerably.
Sure.
He's more muscle, less kind of jelly, not jello-y or whatever you want.
I think that
I shouldn't be saying that about anybody.
When you're part of the UFBA, United Fat Boys of America, you can say anything. You can get away with anything. And that's kind of the cards that me and you both get. George and Bob can't say shit. Neither can Josh is maybe somewhere in between.
No, I'm pushing that level.
Okay.
I'm applying for membership.
I didn't want to.
We've saved Josh's life. We can say what we want. We took that photo of him and his ankles were swollen, and he got help, and now he's still alive thanks to us.
That's right.
There were lives saved that day, honestly.
The group that I really was kind of impressed with too, just watching them go through individual drills and stuff like that yesterday was the safety group, and I know that there's going to be a lot of attention placed on them.
Quick aside, Justin Harrington was the linebackers yesterday.
He was.
Right? Yeah.
He was.
That's noteworthy.
I don't know. I think I'm at a point now with Justin Harrington that it's I'm going to wait to just, if he gets on the field and starts contributing, then I'll start picking up that conversation again.
He's a backup cheetah just like last year probably, and he's a special teams guy. And if he does more than that, then
you can start talking about him.
Terrible at selling papers right now. It's Justin Harrington all the time.
Well, we can do that. I mean, we'll get some video out there if we really want to trump that. It's. I thought the safety group though was pretty interesting. With Reggie Pearson's obviously he looks the part. Peyton Bowen moves a little bit differently than all those other guys over there. Key Lawrence physically looks great. Gonna have to probably wait and see. I think Billy Bowman, just from like where he is today, from where he came in, what was that, 2.5 years ago? Like his body is transformed overnight.
I was glad to see, like, we talked to him after practice. Like, he hasn't taken that too far. Like, he's not, like, super bulked up. Like, he's, you kind of realize, like, okay, yeah, I'm jacked now. I don't need to be, like, here to win bodybuilding competitions. I need to play football. And talking to him yesterday, I don't know how many of you guys were over there with Billy, but, he's very level-headed. He didn't want to give too much praise. Like, I asked him, like, what did you think of some of the guys like Deshaun McCauley? He's like, oh, well, you can tell he doesn't know what's going on yet. So it's like, I think he's a guy that's ready to be a leader.
He's going to need to be.
I mean, I will say one thing I noticed. Again, I haven't been here for a while, but the guys are very buttoned up when it comes to media, it seems like. And I don't know if that's changed, but like you listen to some of these guys and it seems like they are very much like just preaching what Brent tells them all the time, where it's like,
I will say this is I'm on kind of the committee for who gets to pick the players or who, and I get you guys' all input. Virtually no one that we requested was given to the media. Like not just me, but all of the group of us that say, hey, we want this guy, this guy, this guy. None of us requested, I don't think, well, maybe we did Billy Bowman, but Stutzman we did, Woody we did, so now I'm backtracking. But it just seems like, we wanted to talk to Dylan Gabriel. I thought, first day we talked to Dylan Gabriel. He wasn't made available. We were told he had a class conflict. And, it was basically they stayed with, veteran guys yesterday. So we were kind of getting the buttoned up crowd yesterday.
Yeah, it just felt like they were all, I wouldn't say they didn't have any personality, but like they just weren't very long in their answers in some of them. And some of that's just, college kids in general. But like
Jeff Lebby's probably the most, expressive person, just giving us information about things than anybody.
Yeah, Lebby. I thought Lebby was really good yesterday.
Always is.
He was impressive, and I thought he answered my question really well about leaving Oklahoma or not leaving Oklahoma. But like I spent some time talking to Farouk. He's a real quiet kid.
Yes, and that is the
he's
thing.
He's always been like that.
Yeah, Farouk, Bowman, they've always been like that. I don't think they can be like that when you get closer to the season. You're going to need them to start to assert themselves.
Well, and that's what's going to be interesting, I think, to see, and that's what is great about the interviews is you can kind of see who's going to step into those leadership roles. And I think Stutzman, again, I've never interviewed him before, but he seems like he's matured quite a bit.
He's just frustrating as an interview subject. I mean, it's a lot of coach speak. He doesn't give you much, and it's like it seems like that kid has a big personality away from the field, but we never really get to see it in the media. It's like he's doing that question stuff, and it's like there's more of him in that than there is in him. I don't know if he just is uncomfortable doing interviews, doesn't want to say the wrong thing.
I think he's just trying to be respectful at some point.
Yeah.
Like, and doesn't let his guard down a little bit, because if you do get him by the side, I don't want to say he's a completely different person, but he does open up.
But he has a personality.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Guys, he's had people calling him out for the last year, including his own head coach, for being open and transparent, and being kind of the goofy guy that we see in some of this stuff. Like, I'm sure at some point he's like, well, screw it then. I'm just going to give you coach like that. That's why I hate when people bag on people that give honest answers, like some
right. But we've never gotten really. I mean, he got bagged on for something he said on like Gabe and Teddy's podcast about kind of dismissing Brent as being too basically. What's the right word for it? Anal about things or whatever?
I thought he got dissed a little bit by Gabe and Teddy. I didn't think that was on their podcast. If I could be wrong.
Yeah, it was
strengthening on, Oklahoma thing.
No, it was on Jeremiah and Braden's podcast,
right.
Podcast on the Prairie, and then they
and then everybody else jumped on top of that. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, we've got. I got into it with a board member in the last week because they were like, he doesn't take this seriously. Like he's got to be like Mickey from Rocky all the time. Like, you're gonna eat lightning and crap thunder. Like,
but the thing was though, it was. I thought the criticism was justified because he was so inconsistent, and he talked about that even yesterday. Like, he has to be a guy that you can count on to be doing all, because when the defense isn't great and he's the guy that's part of the problem, it's like everybody wants him, and it's unfair in a way because everyone wants him to be an All-American, Brian Bosworth clone.
Everybody wants him to be Teddy Lehman, just like at a snap of a finger. Almost.
Right, and he's not, and he's trying to figure that all out. So he's under an intense amount of pressure, but at the same time, it doesn't help when you go on and you talk about, Coach Venables is just getting on me. When
you play bad, and then all of a sudden, all these negatives stack up against you. Right. It's like, well, it's just easy to pick on it.
Like, you're not consistent, and you're complaining about how hard you get coached by Brent Venables, or how he picks at you for things that you think are dumb or little or don't matter. Right. Like, there's a connection there that you're not making. Right. Like, there's I think that's all that was out of those comments about Brent.
It also came at the head of, I think, the height of the frustration, in that, I think everybody to a man thought with Brent coming back, the defense was just overnight going to be better. There was going to be no questions asked because there was a belief that they were going to get better coaching. And there was a frustration when that didn't come to fruition.
And I think all anybody's wanted out of Danny from that is to be like, okay, I get it now. Like, what I was saying is wrong. Like, what Brent's saying, he's trying to make me a better player. I need to listen to him more, and that'll make me a better player. That'll make the defense a better player. And nobody's ever really gotten that, I'm air quoting, that satisfaction of him saying that. So it's just like, you want to hear something from Stutzman that lets you know it's not just coach speak. It's not just him saying the right things, but that he actually believes, that he can get better and he's not where he needs to be. Like, I just think that's what people want to hear.
And I agree, but I just think people are it's a false equivalency. Like, he can't be goofy and takes football seriously. Like, those two things.
I have no patience for those kind of people.
Yeah. But no, you're right. Like, there is something to it, and I think it's kind of like it's something I've always talked about. Like, when a player is, and I don't mean like OU, I mean any athlete or coach or whatever, when they're good with the media, it's human nature that they get a little bit more leniency when things aren't going well. Like, I think it just is. Like, right or wrong or however you see that. But when you give somebody a target, and Danny's not bad to the media. I just mean, like, he's given people a window into him, and they're like, oh, that's the problem. He's goofy. Like, he messes around too much. Like, if suddenly he was, like I said, a super serious guy all the time, like, that defense was suddenly going to be better last year. No, it had problems far beyond Danny Stutzman.
Sure, yeah, and one of them was the guy that was next to him, and David Agwebu. I think we can all agree Agwebu was far more inconsistent than Stutzman was. Agreed.
Because, I can think of points in games when Stutzman wasn't just like, oh, he's playing well. Like, he was a dominant force. Like, the first half against Florida State, he was outstanding. I can point to several points in the year when he was that guy. I can't think of any moment when David Agwebu was like, oh, he's the difference in this game right now.
I think, wasn't there one game, Bob, where he led the team in tackles, though, last year?
Not sure, but for Stutzman, the first quarter, he was always like one of the best players on the entire field. And then it felt as the game kept going, he would trail off.
But that was the kind of whole defense. Like, that was after the Texas game when Brent said he felt like they were tired. And then it all became like, you're practicing too hard. You're going too hard in practice. Like, you've worn these guys out.
It's basically, you're crawling to get to that first bye week.
But no, I thought one of the things yesterday, guys, just talking to the players, was I was kind of taking the temperature of what's the leadership like on this team. And I think, Billy Bowman, Woody Washington, Danny Stutzman, like, that's a foundation. And George, I know it's hard for you to speak on this because you were, covering the Broncos last year, but like, Bob, that's something that was clearly lacking. Learning a new system. Now they've got it. They've been in it for a year. Like, now I think is when we can really judge. Okay, who are the leaders and the whole captain thing. made it confusing. But that's kind of what I don't know how you felt about that yesterday, if you were kind of looking for that, but that's what I was kind of taking mental notes of every time we were talking to somebody.
And that's why I mentioned like Farouk and Bowman just in the first interview. They were sounded the same as they did as sophomores, and I was hoping that would change just a little bit, because what do I say? Your captains, you want them to be your best players, and if you need them to step up on the field, then they're going to need to step up in the locker room in the way that they lead the younger guys, and they're going to be in that position. They feel comfortable, especially Billy. Him and Woody have been around for a while now. They know what's expected, and now it's on them to get all those younger guys to follow their lead.
And I'll say this, guys, I think you probably noticed hearing this yesterday, like, I think what's been beat into their heads during the offseason is we barely lost like 3 games down the stretch. Like, the little things matter.
100%.
We need you guys to understand that the little things are the reason you win or lose games, because that kept every player I talked to brought that up yesterday.
We caught it on the Sights and Sounds. Miguel Chavis, basically one of the comments he made was, you want to go to the Cheez-It Bowl or you want to go to the playoffs? Like, it is a very thin margin between winning and losing. And then especially when the way that they lost those games at the end of the season, for the last 5 games, you're losing literally on the final series of the game.
Yeah.
And how different would the narrative be just as a whole on Oklahoma football in general had they just, maybe even give them like one of those games, like
7 and 6,
7 and 6 between 6 and 7 is
give them Morgantown.
Massive. Yeah, any of them. I almost died covering that game.
Even the bowl game, even though they played well and they weren't embarrassing, like, that's still one of those games where if they did a little of this on either side of the ball, didn't have a turnover, didn't made this tackle here or there, didn't have that bust,
get off the field on 1 3rd and 15 against West Virginia. 1 3rd and 13 against Texas Tech. Like,
get one stop against the run against Baylor in that last drive.
Sure. It everything that went wrong at times. We don't need to rehash that. Sorry for the PTSD.
But that's the message to me, and that's the message that, like, Brent spends plenty of his time kind of giving his ideology or whatever. It's like, it might have been one of us. Someone asked him a question about, or I know what it was. It was Ryan Aber asked him a question about facilities. It was like an 11-minute answer, but it was basically him kind of saying, this is the blueprint of our program.
Sure. And it's something that I still think even going into year 2, and obviously there's going to have to be drastic improvement, patience is going to be the most important thing, and it's probably not the easiest thing.
Well, and what I do find interesting is like that message about, we're close and the, little things matter. Like, that's something that's being talked about to the team and not necessarily being talked about in the media. So it's like, you can tell. I find that interesting just because this is obviously their biggest point of emphasis going into spring practice versus, on the outside, it's about what we need to build as a program, and we need to build the foundation, and we can get into the portal stuff because I think that's really interesting too, especially after you hear some of Mike Gundy's comments from yesterday. But I don't know. I maybe I'm just being nerdy about it, but I just found that part interesting. And the key is, does the team find that interesting? Do they buy into it?
Well, and again, I'm going to say this a million times, but I was not here last year. But it felt like from afar that last year.
But to be fair, you're an OU grad. You were watching all the games, right. Like you were invested in it.
Last
even though
year,
you were
it
away.
seemed in the spring that there was just a lot of excitement around the program. They're installing everything. This year, it seems to me there's some sort of sense of urgency. And maybe I'm wrong there, but it seems like Brent has understands that they were short last year on what the expectations were, and I think you hear that from the coaches. I mean, even the DeMarco stuff, and maybe that's just how he is all the time. But the little things, like you said, I think Bill Beatenbow was all over. I watched Bill Beatenbow for a while.
He was tight.
Yeah,
he was
season form.
Yeah, I mean,
I think he knows. The consensus is he had underperformed as a coach. last year.
We purposely left out some audio from the Bill Beatenbow portion.
Yeah, he was all over Guyton on something, which was another guy. I know we talked about leaders a little bit earlier. I think he could be a leader on this team. He seemed comfortable yesterday. I know, Carey, you and I were over there watching him, and he was yelling at you about Jake Taylor and saying this is the next big thing. Like, he seems like a vocal guy. I don't know, maybe he could step in and be a leader guy. He looked fantastic.
I was sitting there taking photos of him and Jake Taylor going through, and Josh knows this. I wish his name was Jake Tyler. I mean, that would be the perfect. I don't know if you're a Never Back Down fan, but I think it's the greatest movie ever made.
Oh, it's a movie?
Okay. Amber Heard, young Amber Heard before the Johnny Depp situation. She was the hottie in it. But it's a former football player. It's a former football player that had anger issues. He has to leave school after he gets kicked out of his third school.
So it's
or
like
whatever.
a spinoff from the program.
Well, no. What happens is he moves to Florida and he gets involved in MMA, mixed martial arts fighting.
Oh, okay.
And the Cam Gigenet, I think is his name. He's the bad guy. He plays bad guys in everything, but he ends up setting him up to look like a fool, basically, and then he starts training with the guy from Gladiator, the black guy, and he built him into an MMA champion. Fantastic, man.
Take your word for it.
Carey,
if you give me a chance to go on and never back down tirade, I will go on and never back down tirade. I'm just telling you right now.
Josh, you and I think alike. I looked up the same thing. 21% on Rotten Tomatoes.
F you, Rotten Tomatoes, all right?
If he tells me about music, I will take it as gospel fact. Like, I listen to his music opinions. We agree on a lot of stuff. Almost anything else, I do not trust Carey.
I hate you.
Yeah, Carey and I spent like an hour the other day in here just searching movies and their Rotten Tomatoes score.
Every one of those people that downvoted that movie are family men. I'm telling you right now. Family men will never understand Never Back Down and its greatness. It's like trashy Fast and the Furious without cars is what it is.
Now, there's the one MMA movie that is really good where the two brothers end up fighting.
Warrior.
That's a great movie. That's outstanding. But I mean, it walks the fine line of cheesiness just a little bit at certain points. But for the most part, it's really good.
You know who Jake Tyler's best buddy is in Never Back Down? The guy that played Jeffrey Dahmer in the Netflix series.
Oh, I'm looking at him. Yeah. I still haven't seen that.
I don't want to. Don't see it. I don't recommend anybody. Yeah. There's no reason to watch that series, but that. I don't know. Is it just a movie or is it like a mini series? Anyway.
We're down.
I think it's a mini. I think it's one of those limited series or whatever they call it. I think that's right, but I don't know.
Okay, let's get back to football. I would like to talk about the transfer portal. George, you wrote about it. It is eye-opening when you look at like Alabama and Georgia and what the transfer portal has meant to them, which is almost nothing. I mean, I don't want to say almost nothing because the Gibbs kid was, from Georgia Tech, the transfer, probably going to be what, third-round draft pick, Josh? Maybe second because he's so fast.
Yeah, I was going to say that 40 he ran, he might sneak into the second with all they could do with him. But yeah, I mean, you're right. It's unbelievable how little those two programs have been impacted by the portal.
Because they recruit. And I mean, if you recruit well, you don't need to hit the portal that often. I mean, it's like, Lincoln Riley, you had it, George, I think, 20 transfers he had?
I believe so. That's what it was last year. Yeah.
And I mean, the best transfers. Like, he got the absolute best transfers that you can get, except for, a few guys went here or there. But at the same time, like, you have to recruit well. And your program has to be built on recruiting. You asked Venables about that, and that was basically, he confirmed, like, no, we're about development. We're not about, portal.
Well, and I think, and what I wrote about was it can be a Band-Aid for sure, especially for programs that are going through coaching changes. I mean, I pointed out, TCU and USC had quite a bit of success with it, but they also had their shortcomings with it last year. And Oklahoma, tried to do some transfer portal stuff too, and they fell short last year. But in the long term, you have to be able to recruit. And I mean, that's just college football in general. I mean, the programs that are competing for national titles, like Georgia and Alabama, are finishing in the top 3 recruiting rankings every single year. So you have to be able to do that. You have to have kids, buy in and stick around too. Obviously, you can't have a bunch of kids leaving every year. And I don't think it's a situation where OU needs to just not take anybody in the transfer portal. I think they have to right now. And I think down the line, even, if there's a spot that you really need, like this last year, bringing in a Walter Rouse because you really need some depth at left tackle, then you should do that. But them taking 11 this year, I don't expect them to take 11 next year. I think that number will just keep getting smaller unless it's a unique situation. But yeah, and I think it also too this year, they took less guys, but it seemed like they took more quality players, and I don't think just saying, oh well, they took more Power 5 kids, speaks to that totally, because you can always get nice players from smaller schools. But I do think that you look at a Trace Ford, Bothroyd, McCulloch, like they didn't get those guys in the portal last year, and so I think that those are going to be huge additions.
Well, and Josh, I mean, let's just go back. Let's not even call it portal. Let's just call it transfers. I mean, you go back over the history, just go back to when Bob Stoops started. Like, it wasn't often that they took a transfer, and then when they did take a transfer, he became like a star. Like, maybe Jalen Saunders is the biggest transfer over the last 15 years.
Well, it got to be easy there. I mean, if outside of quarterback, obviously.
Right, yeah. I mean, I'm talking about Baker stuff. But
yeah,
but I mean, like there was Justin Brown from Penn State, there was Geno Lewis.
Sure. The grad transfer stuff.
Magruder was a good player.
Oh yeah, he was a nice player. Yeah, I mean,
yeah. So I mean, you're right. Like,
but he
definitely been few between.
But at the same time, Lynn Magruder was one of those guys, huge recruit, got in trouble off the field, like criminal stuff, and ended up it all worked out. He didn't get like they had to drop his felony charge to a misdemeanor so he could. But he ruined his. That's like you ruin your opportunity at one school because you do something stupid off the field, and then that's like the redemption transfer. So I would even separate that as a different type of transfer. But just guys not happy with their playing time or production, like that rarely ever works out, even before it was the portal. So now that it's the portal and all these guys are in it, and these are all guys that weren't producing where they were, like, I don't know if Andrell Anthony is ever going to be a really good player. I mean, why wasn't he a good player at Michigan? Well, you could say he don't throw the football. If he was transferring to Ohio State and he just wasn't productive there, then I'd say, oh, I'm really intrigued by this guy because he had Jackson and Jigba. I'm going to get in trouble for saying that word. Njigba? Njigba?
Yeah, Smith. Is it Smith? I can't remember.
Smith and Jigba. Smith and Jigba. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Jackson Smith and Jigba. Was that right?
Yep.
But no, like if he's behind Marvin Harrison Jr. and all those guys, that's great. I mean, name me Michigan's top receiver last year?
Oh, it was. I know this.
Well, nobody. You have to Google it to find out.
You have to Google.
But no, I mean that's the thing about the transfer portal. It's like, yeah, that's great and everything, but we're talking about super seniors, and like, it's one of those things. Like Reggie Pearson seems very attractive, but go talk to a Tech fan about Reggie Pearson and what kind of career he had. They'll know all of his warts along with anything good that he did. Like, as an OU fan, all you know is he knocked out Dylan Gabriel at the start of overtime last year in that game, and he had some other big plays, in that game. But I'm sure he has some warts. It's like he gets lost in coverage, or he can't handle. When he gets put on a fast receiver, he can't. I mean, stuff like that. I don't know if that's what it is, but I don't know. Relying on the portal to me is not a key for success. Like TCU, I realize they had a lot of guys, and George, you kind of chronicled that, but to me, that's a little bit of an outlier. Like SMU's had success with that, but SMU doesn't recruit with. I mean, the guys that they're getting in there, Josh, they were better recruits than they could have gotten out of high school. Like they're getting players through the transfer portal because they're not great at recruiting. If you're Oklahoma, you can be great at recruiting. I mean, Brent proved that this last year. So once they can get off of wean themselves off of the portal, the better. The quicker they can do that, the better.
Oh, there's no question. I mean, like you look at Oklahoma had obviously a top 10 recruiting class and similarly had a top 10 portal class, and those are great things. At the same time, you look at the recruiting class and there are a whole bunch of guys, and I realize there's more development to be done and we don't know as much, But there's a lot of guys that you say, hey, if this goes right, that's an NFL guy. Like those are NFL football players. And I mean, you're talking more than a dozen guys in this class that I think absolutely have that kind of ability. They won't all reach it, but it's there. In the portal group, Deshaun McCullough is the only guy I'm betting on in that group that I'm like, that's more than just a cup of coffee in the NFL guy. That's a legit big-time talent. And what do we know about Deshaun McCullough? He was a high-level recruit that everybody wanted. He has all the physical skills. This isn't a guy that went somewhere and found a good scheme or overachieved. Like, he is just an outstanding player. I would probably put Walter Rouse in that same conversation, possibly, assuming he's healthy and all those things. But, I mean, those two, everybody else, like, they could get a shot. I'm not saying that they won't. I'm just saying the upside is smaller. And, guys, I mean, obviously – and I pointed to it a lot, and I did my victory lap in January, so I won't do it all the way through again. But Georgia and TCU are a very good example of what we're talking about. Like, Georgia is Georgia because they got the guys everybody wanted. TCU found a bunch of parts from all around college football that made a really good team. I'm not saying they're not, but when those guys meet up against the very cream of the crop, there's just a place they can't go. There's a limit to how far that can take them. And, you know, having a guy like Georgia here is a really good example because Georgia's been looking at NFL practices. I'm sure he walked out there yesterday and it's like, wow, these guys look smaller than I remembered. Like, it's different because there is, you know, on that whole OU roster, there are 10 or 12 guys probably that are really going to have NFL careers. I mean, real deal 3, 4, 5-year careers. And, like, that's okay. That's really good by any college standard. But when every guy there, it's just different. And like I said, and when most of your roster are those guys that are not going to make it, you're just limited in how far you can go.
I want to mention real quick, great sponsor, primeshrimp.com. They've got shrimp for every lifestyle. Basically, you want keto friendly, is that what it is? Gluten-free, paleo-friendly, Whole30 friendly. It's all there, and there's no hassle. Just a great restaurant quality meal. You just boil some water, take your pouch, make your selection on the website. Garlic herb butter, signature Cajun seasoned shrimp, Louisiana boil, Cajun shrimp, New Orleans style, barbecue shrimp, French Quarter Alfredo, lemon and cracked pepper. Just go online to primeshrimp.com. That's PRIME shrimp.com. And here's the deal. Use this promo code U40. This is the promo code now moving forward, U40. And you'll get 25% off your entire order of 5 items or more. So spend $50 basically. You'll get 25% off your order. Basically pays for your shipping, and it's frozen when it gets to you. It's packed in dry ice. It's a big-time packaging deal. Josh and I both got them. We're going to get some for George because he's a big shrimp guy. But primeshrimp.com, no muss, no fuss, just no mess either. Just go to the website. Download your favorite. Get at least 5 packs, either the $9.99 or $10.99. They're single packs now. Use that promo code U40, and you'll get 25% off your first order of primeshrimp.com. It is a fantastic, easy meal, and like I've always said, keeps those ridiculous DoorDash fees to a minimum, because I know some of you are addicted like I am and just happen to get that every night on your way home. So it's there by the time you get there. This will avoid all that crap. Primeshrimp.com. Go check them out. Great sponsor of the pod. Okay, now, here's the reverse thing. And this tells you to me why the portal is not the end-all, be-all. Like, Josh, can you remember who is the most significant... I'm trying to think. Who has made the most significant impact that you can remember that's transferred out of the University of Oklahoma?
Wow.
Caleb Williams. He won the Heisman Trophy last year.
Okay, you son of a bitch. That's too easy. This before NIL. Before NIL.
Oh. It's not a long list,
Trey
man.
Sermon?
What about Tashard Choice?
Yeah.
Tashard Choice might be. Yeah.
What about defensively, though? Has there been somebody defensively? Seriously.
Guys, for a decade, OU's been hanging on to anybody defensively with a pulse, like with their fingernails.
There has to be somebody out there.
It's amazing they haven't
on.
lost a really good player that's like, I ain't playing with this shit anymore.
Buki, right?
Well,
But Buki played. I mean,
He had a sledgehammer.
in the conversation. That's how limited the list is.
But I'm saying if you want a good example of what it's like taking a transfer from a major program, don't look at who comes in. Look who goes out.
Well, that's the thing.
I mean, like Jaden Hazelwood, he would be like top 5 maybe.
Maybe, and I mean
he was just
he had
okay.
an okay career
Yeah.
at Arkansas. He didn't have a 5-star career by any means.
I mean, Theo Weiss has a chance to be one of those guys.
sure.
Trey Sermon was really good at Ohio State.
Trey Sermon, yeah, that's a good call.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I don't think that was necessarily like quote unquote NIL.
I mean, Abdul Adams was pretty good at Syracuse.
Yeah. Yeah.
And guys, and Tashard Choice is the perfect embodiment of what the portal is good for.
Well, he was also
Adrian
behind
Peterson.
Adrian Peterson. Yeah, I mean,
nobody should. I mean, he was an NFL player. He had every reason on earth to leave, and he was stuck behind, the best back of his generation. Like, okay, yeah, that perfect. He went back home, had a nice career at Georgia Tech, and then went and had, made some money in the NFL.
I mean, it's almost like the only thing I could think of that would be similar, like Alvin Kamara. Didn't he start at Alabama, finish at Tennessee? Mm-hmm. Had a really nice NFL career. I think he's still going.
Well,
I want to say Kamara got in a little trouble, if I remember right.
I think that's right, yeah.
if it's a player that is coming into your school, it's a good thing. If he's leaving, he doesn't mean shit. Like, everybody knows that's how the college football fan's mind works.
David Agwebu is going to be a great example. How he
Right.
does at Houston is
Right.
going to be very intriguing.
Right. It was a mutual decision that everybody needed to
benefit
go in the right
everyone,
in
yeah.
different directions from the Oklahoma perspective. For Houston, I'm sure they're saying, "Hey, we're getting this guy from Oklahoma. He's going to be a badass."
He had all these tackles last year.
Like, what happened at Oklahoma? Why didn't he want to play there anymore?
If he cooks at defensive end, I'm going to be really upset. I'm just going to say it.
I mean, I think a lot of people will be because I don't know. It's kind of like that thing. Like I always said, like, well, Caleb Kelly should be a defensive end. And everyone's like, oh, he's not big enough to be a defensive end. It's like, well, it doesn't matter how big he is. He's not doing shit at linebacker. I mean, David Agwebu was kind of the same way. Of course, Caleb Kelly couldn't even ever stay healthy, so that was part of it.
But yeah, Carey, to your point, I think the guys going out too. That's why I put in there that statistic. I think it's 16. They had 16 transfers after Brent's first year, and I think it was only 3 of them landed at Power 5 schools, and 7 of them haven't even enrolled anywhere.
So what are they doing right now?
Yeah, it's like, but that's the kind of like the processing that they're doing, right? It's like they're cleaning out some guys that just didn't fit what they were doing, or weren't the guys that maybe they thought they were going to be. At least the previous staff thought they were going to be.
Well, it's just like, I heard Mike Gundy's, the Oklahoma State head coach's comments today about like, oh, well, yeah, I was surprised by some of the things happening in the portal, but I can guarantee I won't be anymore because we're going to be fully active in the portal. And I'm just like, I don't know. Like, you need to start recruiting better. Like, that's what you need to do. Not rely on the portal.
I think Oklahoma State's a pretty good example of a good portal school. Like, I don't think OU can go where it wants to go living in the portal.
Right, yeah.
But I think OSU can be pretty good living in that world. Now, I mean, don't get me wrong. You've got to, like, any program, I think recruiting needs to be as much your lifeblood as it possibly can be. But I think they can do well in the portal. But
let me throw this out there too, because you just reminded me of this. When Brent was talking about facilities, like everybody was comparing, like, well, Florida spent $80 million and Oklahoma spent $175. Do you kind of think that Brent knows, like, we need to overspend on facilities a little bit here because that gives us an edge on some of the other people that we're recruiting against when it comes to, like, I mean, when you consider like A&M, Florida, or no, Georgia and Alabama, like, I don't know how far Georgia is behind like Alabama and A&M, but they're a little bit, I think, in facilities. But like, if you're Oklahoma, you're playing in that pool, you've got to be, if not as good, better than them in facilities, don't you?
I think you do, and I think it's an interesting thing because, and not really Georgia and Alabama. I know a lot of people just assume Georgia and Alabama are huge in the NIL game, and they're really not. Like, I mean, once you get on campus, sure, like there's money to be made there, but like they're not like A&M or Miami, like using that as such a big recruiting tool. That's not really the way they've worked. So I wonder if OU is like, well, that's what we want to do. We don't want to be an NIL school. We want to be, you come here and once you're successful, hey, money's there for you. I think that's how they want to live. And so they know, well, if we invest in these things, maybe that evens the field a little bit. Now, I'm not saying that I agree or disagree with that logic, but I'm just saying I think that's got to be part of the thinking.
I don't think they want to be 5 years from now and saying we have to do this again. So you have to put the money into it to make sure it's worth it. Not just
because that's kind of what they're doing with the South End Zone right now.
Yes. So if you
they're
put
abandoning it essentially.
75, 80 million, it's a Band-Aid. It gets you through as you make the transition. But then by like 2027, you're like, man, we've got to get more. So go ahead and do it now and do it right.
And you build the mega facility that can be changed and you can make moves with going forward.
Yeah, it's a strange. I can understand people that are just like, why are they doing this? Like they just built the South End Zone. Like, what's wrong with the South End Zone? But we don't know. We don't have to move all around it all day long and all that.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't think that people understand like how much time those guys spend inside the facility. To a certain extent, and it sounds like over the last 4 or 5 years they haven't been spending enough time in the facility, if you will. Just as far as like watching film and that kind of shit.
Well, and to be honest, like if it gets you 2-3 more guys in your recruiting class over some other program,
2 or 3 more 5 stars, especially.
Right? That's what I'm saying. It's like that. It makes it it's worth it. That makes, I think, in my opinion, the $175 million worth it.
Yeah, and I just don't know. I mean, the NIL stuff changes every day. I mean, I don't know that that's making decisions for kids all of a sudden. Like I think in the very beginning, like Miami was able to do that, Texas A&M was able to do that. But I think when players see like those programs were known for that, yet they're shitty still, and their records are terrible. Like, do I really want to like? If my goal is to go to the NFL, don't I want to be like playing in the playoff and playing against the best competition and not being under 500? Like, does the money top, the money I might get someday, I guess. And that's what you were alluding to that, Josh, with Alabama and Georgia.
Yeah, and I mean, I know one of the focal guys that talked a lot about it during his recruitment was a guy that OU fans know, Brandon Ennis, the wide receiver that was committed, before Riley's departure, the big-time 5-star kid out of Florida. He was very honest. Like, I could have made a lot more money going somewhere else, but I wanted to go to Ohio State. And if you think about it, you're like, that's just a smart kid. Like, look what Ohio State's doing with their receiver room. Every year they've got a first or second, a really highly thought of draft pick, and Brian Hartline's just churning those guys out. So, yeah, I'll defer the extra $100,000 I could have made, over the next 4 years for the, $6 million signing bonus I might be staring down in a couple of years.
All right, so I think that covers a lot of what Brent talked. Was there anything that he brought up in his press conference or that you guys heard yesterday that you wanted to bring up?
I put this out on Twitter, but the quote about the offense and the defense complementing each other, I thought was an interesting quote because obviously everybody's talked about last year. It felt at times that the offense was going too fast, and Brent made it a point to say that they played the most possessions in college football last year of any team on defense. And he's right. They played 1,043 plays, which is almost 300 more than what they played the previous year on defense and almost 500 more than the previous 2 years. So, I thought that was an interesting quote that maybe we see the offense slow it down a bit. I don't know. Lebby wasn't really asked about that yesterday, but I did think that it was interesting that he was very quick to say, yeah, we played way too much on defense.
Yeah, I mean, that was most definitely the biggest kind of gripe of the fans, and deservedly so last year. I mean, the quick 3 and outs and just not doing anything with the football, not getting the running game established at times. It was just, I don't know, or just not coming up with the big plays. I mean, it just seemed like it was a lot of, big plays, big shots, or nothing at times. And I would say not relying on the running game, more was kind of an issue. But, yeah, you cannot go back out there again and have an offense and a defense that are totally on different sides of one another, not supporting one another in any way, shape, or form. It just can't. I mean, if that happens again, you might have to have a divorce between Jeff Lebby and Brent Venables.
I mean, go ahead, Josh.
I was going to say, I've been thinking about that a lot lately because I keep looking at the schedule, and I mean, we can get more into this as the year goes on because obviously there's a lot of summer and fall to talk about this stuff. But, like, I keep looking at it. I'm like, what is the baseline of an acceptable season? Like, looking at that schedule under any normal circumstances as an Oklahoma media guy, that's a 10-2 schedule, like, at least. And so I'm like, what's the point when somebody's head's going to have to roll? Like, when is it so far below? Because I mean, 2 games better than 6 and 7's 8 and 5, and that's, I mean, literally an improvement. But is that in year 2? Is that where you feel like, is that acceptable? Like, I'm not saying I know the answer. I just think that's an interesting talking point of, like, where is the breaking point where something's going to have to change?
What's the over/under going to be? 9? 9.5?
I bet
maybe 9.5.
8.5, maybe 9. I bet it's 9.
I bet it's 9.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anything less than 9.
8.5, we might have to drive to Vegas.
Yeah. I think anything less than 9 next year would be a pretty big disappointment for this.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I could see with that schedule, Josh, maybe being a 9. I mean, OU's over. They're usually overinflated in just about every.
Sure. Well,
category
if that's the case, I could see it being.
10.
I could see a 10. Vegas coming out with 10 to see which way the market flows.
I mean, it's just, guys, there's, like, any normal year, like, people be like, they're going to the playoffs. Like, that's just they're going to go 11-1 and go to the playoffs. Like, there's nothing on that schedule that's scary.
Well, they should start 5-0. If they don't start 5-0, I think there's either somebody is really good that we didn't anticipate being good in those first 5 games, or something's bad with the OU. Because I think, who is it? Their first 5. It's Arkansas State, Tulsa, SMU, UCF, and Cincinnati. I mean, maybe Cincinnati
and Iowa State at home. Like, you don't even have to go to Ames.
Toughest game out of those might be SMU, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Who's their quarterback, though?
SMU?
Uh-huh. That's the great thing about the transfer portal. No, Sam Mordecai transferred to Wisconsin.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the great thing about the portal is, like,
I guess
people
it's forget the kid from DFW area, isn't it?
It's the big time. The
5-star kid.
Yeah, his dad's the big booster. Oh man, it's Preston Stone.
Preston Stone. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Were you at Plano? Is Plano kid?
Yeah, I think he was. I think he's from the same school Stogg was from, Prestonwood Christian Academy, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right.
I need to check that to be sure, but I think that's right. He was a guy that I always thought. Oh no, he was from Parish Episcopal, another obviously private school there.
Parish Episcopal sounds very public.
And was a guy that I loved him as a high school kid. So, like, I could totally see him being a player. And part of me wonders if that's, if there was some pressure from inside there, like, hey, it's about time for this kid to have the reins. And Tanner, I wonder if he saw the writing on the wall. So.
I don't know. I mean, Tanner could have just been like, all these, Garrett Riley's gone, Sonny Dykes is gone. Like,
We just wanted to go join that quarterback room in Madison where it seems like there are like 12 different types of seats.
Apparently, when he was on a weekend trip back up to Norman, he and Nick Evers didn't get along or something. So he was just like, I'm going to take that kid's job.
If you have played quarterback in the state of Texas, you have a scholarship available to you at the University of Wisconsin. Like Nick Evers, Tanner Mordecai, the kid that transferred from Mississippi State, who's a Dallas area kid. Like it's crazy. How actually, I'd say Dallas. He might be a West Texas kid now that I think about it.
I don't know what's a crazier quarterback room, though, Wisconsin or Ole Miss?
Oh.
I mean, you got Spencer Sanders, you got Jackson Dart, and who's the other one that they got? The Wisconsin quarterback? They have the Wisconsin guy transfer there?
He went to Florida.
Oh, he went to Florida.
Yeah.
The Mertz kid is what I was thinking of.
Oh, Graham Mertz.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got the kid from LSU.
The guy behind the transfer.
It's a really talented kid. what a surprise that Lane Kiffin's quarterback room could be a bit of a carnival like that. That's going to be wild to watch.
Well, you know why Ole Miss's quarterback room is good, because they got the Dead Soxy NIL collection at Ole Miss. I did this the other day. I was kind of proud of myself. I wanted some more socks, and so I went on and ordered. I used the code just to see if it would work. The code is SCOOP on deadsoxy.com. Got a couple $100 worth of Dead Soxy socks. Eddie's picking them up right now.
Got them right here.
I gave George some no-shows.
Why is there soap in one of these?
I gave George some no-shows and gave his brother a Maker Bayfield. His brother is a brilliant software designer, apparently. Smarter than all of us put together.
Very smart, yes.
And now is he graduated or is he still in school?
He's graduating in May, and he's already got a gig lined up in Dallas working for AT&T doing software engineering, so he's way above the curve.
Does he know anything about websites? We might be able to use him.
Yeah,
in the future.
no, he's like designed like apps and stuff that he's like sold, I think.
I'm going to need that number when we get off the pod. Anyway.
This was just a gateway to get to Sam, wasn't it? You hired George to get to Sam so you could start coding.
Exactly, yeah. No, but Dead Soxy, go on the website. I got some of the boardrooms. I got the retro athlete, the Crimson. Got a 4-pack of the Crimson. They were on sale. But everything that you put in your cart, you get 25% off. And use that promo code SCOOP. Just it makes me smile. And their website's fantastic. They got like the rewards program and all that stuff. So they take care of you. Great customer service. Great socks. I mean, we've all got them now.
Just about no-show season.
It's just about. What the hell is with the rain today? I thought it was supposed to be 81 and sunny all day.
It is.
Today.
Just wait on it.
It is at 80 though. Yeah, it's about 80 right now.
It's kind of humid outside.
Yeah, it's feeling tornado-y right now.
I think tomorrow is the first like real spring chance for severe storms around here.
So anyway, deadsoxy.com, DEADSOXY.com. Go check them out. Use that promo code SCOOP and get 25% off your order, just like I did this week. All right, and as always, stay Soxy. Okay, so recruiting-wise, there's a weekend coming up. I've seen a lot of social media activity. Josh, I know you've been putting together your first list and tracking things. So tell us what's going on with this recruiting weekend coming up.
Yeah, for those that don't know, they are it seems to be a thing with this staff. They like to give a title. This is going to be the Future Freaks weekend. I don't know if that's going to be a year-over-year thing that we see. I don't remember that last year as being a thing, but again, that would much more be something Bob would recall. But it's a good list. I mean, now I want to say to everybody, like, you're looking at a very, by the name, you could expect a lot of juniors, a lot of sophomores. It's a young group where they start to build those early relationships. Now, you're going to have Michael Patterson McDonald, the DB from Westmore. He's making his second trip to Norman in the matter of a couple of weeks. I already have a future cast in for him. I think Oklahoma's in very good shape there. And for those that may think, he's a 3 or he's a 4-star guy, but maybe don't get excited. That's one of David Stone's best friends. So to have him in the class is a multifaceted win. Another interesting guy is Jordan Lockhart, 2024 linebacker that Oklahoma has offered from California. I mean, one of the guy from Bosco there in Orange County. So you're talking about a kid coming from one of the best programs, maybe arguably the best program in the country. And to get him on campus is interesting. He's a guy that on tape, I'm interested to see what OU does with him. He's a bigger guy, real physical, kind of fits that thumper linebacker, kind of inside guy that we've seen Brent gravitate to for 20 years. So I kind of wonder if it's just he's a Mike linebacker kind of guy. But when you get into 25, 26, you're talking about Elijah Thomas, the kid from Chakotah that moved into the top 100 in Rivals this week. Just an explosive receiver, could play some corner. LaMason Waller, a big-time receiver from California. Jaden Nickens, the guy that I think Rivals has him around 175 now. I know some have him in the top 50 guys in the country in that junior class. Dalen McCutcheon, Grayson Harris is a guy that a lot of people think is really big on Oklahoma right now. I think this weekend could be very telling for him. And maybe one of the most highly rated guys that's going to be on campus is another California kid, Phillip Bell from Bishop Alemany in Mission Hills, California. So it's kind of a California feel. kind of almost like a throwback to some of the old junior days. But top 20 guy in the country right now, according to Rivals rankings, very big, explosive receiver. Again, the guys I've listed, that's just the wide receivers. There's a couple others that don't even have offers yet that are Rivals 250 guys they're going to be in on campus. So some of the other guys, Douglas Utu, a big guy from Bishop Gorman, one of the best junior offensive linemen in the country. I love his tape. Michael Fasusi, a guy I've seen a couple times. Eddie saw with me a couple weeks ago in Dallas. So it's the longest list I've seen OU put together for a junior day. There's probably, I haven't done a full count, but I'm going to guess 35, 40 guys on this list. I'm kind of shocked how big it is, and there are still new names coming up almost every day. So there are, like I said, a lot of big-time guys. And it's funny because the more I look at it, the more I am noticing a California feel to it. But I will say one guy that's fun, just because it's going to bring up a lot of memories for people. Caden Jones from Broken Arrow is going to be there. This is the son of Kewan Jones, just a 2026 kid. Wouldn't shock me at all if he picked up an offer this weekend. He will be an OU offer before it's all said and done. He is a big, long, athletic back, one of the early favorites to be the number one guy in a 2026 class in Oklahoma that looks to be another pretty good one.
Eddie, I know who would be happy to give Kewan's son a tour of the campus.
Who?
Jason Kersey.
Jason Kersey, the glove.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
The gloves.
Maybe he could bring his glove with him.
Yeah, maybe he could match it with him. Well, he's a student now. I mean, Jason is a student.
I know. He could be
showing him around.
He could be a chaperone or something, yeah.
My first ever football jersey was Kewan Jones's, number 20.
We have a battle.
Josh, just as far as like...
Now, a Sooner jersey or a Jinx jersey?
Oh, Sooner. But I live in Jinx. Or my family does. So.
That's a hell of a commute, George.
Yes, I'm kidding.
Now, I don't think I've ever shared the story anywhere publicly. I partied with Kewan Jones once upon a time. Showed up in an apartment at my apartment. We were having a big party back in college and years ago, and he rolls in with Jason Carter, who just happened to be on his official visit. And Jason and I was working for Rivals at that point, and I was like, holy shit. Like, Jason had no idea whose house he was going to. And he just showed up, and I was like, oh, man. And so we start talking. Of course, he and Kewan were close. And
that's why Jason Carter came to Oklahoma.
There you go.
I landed him. So, you're welcome, guys. Rivals 100 Corner just brought that guy in.
Josh was partying with him. I was like 6 with his jersey.
Yeah. Thanks, George. That's what I need. No, Kewan and I were talking about how old our asses are now, so that's.
I will tell you, Lewis Baker will tell anyone that will listen that Sooner Scoop is the reason he came to OU.
Lewis, I would say Lewis is in my top 3 or 4 recruits that I was closest to. Like, Lewis told me everything, like stuff that even like stuff you're like, you shouldn't tell me that. Like, I'm going to protect you and not repeat that, but you shouldn't say that. And but he was. He is every reporter's dream, because he would say the things no one else would say.
We had to chase him down Louisville streets trying to get back. So we did a photo shoot with Lewis and, who was the linebacker from Louisville? Demario Pleasant.
Yep.
I want to say Tony Cade was there.
Tony Cade. Yep.
And Marcus Walker was supposed to be there. And actually, compliance gave me the okay to drive to Waco, pick him up, bring him to Louisville for this photo shoot. But somehow he got invited to Houston by Adrian Peterson or something, and it was like Super Bowl weekend then. So anyway, you'll enjoy this story. So I won't say what his name is, but there used to be the what was the stupid name? Athletic Village. Richard Baptist made us jerseys, custom jerseys for those guys. And so compliance was like, you can give them the jerseys. But then we also got the equipment managers of the football team to loan us helmets and footballs. And no matter what happens, do not let them leave with these helmets or footballs. And so it was with Jay Upchurch. It was for Sooners Illustrated back then. And so we take the photos, and we've got a professional photographer there, and he's got lights and everything. We do the photo shoot. They're like, can we keep the jerseys? And we're like, yeah. And we thought that would kind of placate them. Like, yes, you can have the jerseys. They didn't stop there, though. They decided that they also wanted the footballs. even though we had the helmets. And so we got everything in the car, and like Jay Upchurch is like, "Where's the football?" And we're like, "We don't know." And so then we're chasing Lewis Baker and his buddy, who was, I think it was the family that he lived with when he was there, and like. So literally, we're chasing them down side streets of Louisville, trying to basically stop the car. We had to pull like a cop, like it wasn't like a pit maneuver. It wasn't quite that bad, but we had to speed up in front of him and block his car off in order to get the football back. And then they never let us take another football again after they heard the story. So thanks, Lewis.
There you go.
Lewis ruins everything.
So there you go.
Sounds like a secondary violation.
No, because we got the football back.
Oh, okay.
Josh, are these guys going to be able to make it to practice Saturday? Is that part of the plan?
To my understanding, that is part of the plan. Like that's what they're. Because when I talk to guys, that's one of the things they, like most of them discuss. Is like I want to go watch them practice. I want to watch them work. And I know that was part of having. Because the last few weeks, obviously, they could have had a junior day. And it's interesting, guys. And I was talking to somebody. I was talking to Jason Sukamel at the Under Armour camp in Dallas a couple weeks ago. And we were talking about how there is such an overlap of OU and Texas as far as – because Texas is having a junior day the same day. And that usually doesn't happen. I don't know. Like, I've always wondered, like, do the staffs talk and are like, okay, you do it this day, we'll do it this day, we'll call it cool. And this is one of the rare times I've seen them go head-to-head. And Sukamel looked at me, he goes, there's a lot more guys going to OU than there are Texas. And that's not usually the way that plays. So I think that's really interesting. But I think that is a big part of it, is why they wanted it to be this weekend, so they could have guys come watch practice, obviously after the start of spring ball. And so I think there is going to be a lot of that. Now, there is a solid group of offensive linemen, like I mentioned, so it'll be interesting to see if those guys get the same Bill Bedenbow that you guys got to enjoy yesterday. So that will be a fun storyline to talk about with those guys.
I was noticing that Notre Dame was trending on Twitter. I was trying to figure out what was going on. I think they're just starting their spring practices, but I think it's excitement over Sam Hartman finally getting a first look as Notre Dame's new quarterback. Just kind of scary because it's kind of scary because I like Sam Hartman, and Notre Dame with a quarterback might actually be pretty good.
What a weird offseason he had, or just a weird year Sam Hartman had with like all the health scares that he had at Wake Forest.
Yeah, he had to sit out for some reason.
He missed like the first month and a half of the season with undisclosed medical injury.
Yeah,
and it was something like
it had to be
somewhat
heart
serious.
Something.
Yeah, it was something that he had to be cleared for. And then he ends up going to Notre Dame, obviously, and then Tommy Rees leaves for Alabama, but he's still staying. It's just strange.
And I guess I didn't even know this, but Ron Pallis III's son was a quarterback on the team, but he's had to give up football because of medical condition.
Who?
Oh, God. See,
no, Eddie, no.
That name means nothing to that.
No.
Ron Pallis?
Ron Pallis
Yes.
III.
Supposed to be a Notre Dame savior.
Does
back
Bino
in the day.
Cook ring any bells?
I know Bino Cook. Yeah, for sure.
You could go on YouTube and still find where Bino Cook predicted like 2 Heisman trophies for Ron Pallis after what was that, 2 games into the year that year?
I don't think he ever played it down. I think he was a recruit at the time.
Oh, God. Was it really? Yeah, that could be. That was like 92, 93.
He might have predicted 3 Heisman trophies. Rest in peace. Yeah, Bino Cook and Ron Pallis. That was a match made in heaven.
I definitely know the name Bino Cook.
Pallis played in 1996. That's before my time.
You can pipe down now, all right? That's how young you are. I didn't get
Bino
younger.
Cook talking about NAFTA.
We didn't try and get younger at this company so we could just get harassed. We're going to get an HR department.
Guessing
next.
Bino Cook wouldn't have been a fan of the NIL game.
Oh, boy.
Oh, he would have been
so
done at
much.
COVID.
Yeah.
I mean,
he would have.
Why? Because he would have got COVID and died, or he just would have been phased out of COVID?
I mean, he was one of those. He was like, they just can't. At ESPN, they cannot get rid of old people. Like he was the modern day Lee Corso. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But then they didn't have to put him on like a set. He just would do like a hit on like SportsCenter on Sunday mornings about college football. Mm-hmm. It was just some guy that was so old. It sounded like he always had something caught in his throat.
That's kind of where I remember Beano Cook from, is the Sunday morning stuff.
Yeah.
For
and
sure.
He'd come on there and talk about how everything sucks now and it used to be better in college football. So, yeah, he would have definitely hated the transfer portal.
They need to bring back like that. Now Lee Corso's not as much of a curmudgeon as he just is like, oh, this is sad. Like, this guy's lost his fastball a little bit.
Oh, guys, I'm watching that video. Beano Cook talking to Chris Fowler, who looks like he's about 12. Lee Corso, who looks like he's 45. And can anybody guess the name of the fourth horseman on this the college scoreboard?
Oh,
Trev
Craig
Alberts.
James.
Is it James?
Craig James?
Done. It's Craig James sitting there over on the far side.
He killed a hooker.
Allegedly.
That's fact.
Okay, so maybe we are.
Wasn't it Mike Leach that was writing that as forward in his books when he'd autograph books?
He was putting
code.
He put the it was the acronyms. It was Craig. CJ.
Never forget something like.
It was like CJKAH, I guess. I don't remember.
I think it was like 4H.
4H. Yeah, it was something weird because then they put out the when Mike Leach passed, that kind of recirculated again about all the Craig James stuff.
People were showing the books that he had autographed. There
Okay,
were
maybe
many
that's
of
what it
them.
was. Yeah. Pretty funny.
Outside of that, I mean, is there anything else we missed on the recruiting weekend coming up?
Not really. Like I said, I would just say I know it's hard sometimes for people to get excited about guys that are so young and that kind of stuff, but the 2025 list, you're talking about Devin Sanchez, who I believe is the number 4 player in the country right now, according to Rivals. He's one of the 4 5-stars already in the 25 class. Kelvion Riggins, who we all saw last summer.
That's
and
ridiculous.
And Bob, like Eddie
Just
and I
wait,
saw him a
Bob.
couple weeks ago at Under Armour, he's scarier now.
I mean, he's legitimately one of those guys that you walk up, Josh, and it's like, he's 25 years old.
Yep.
Yes.
And then you go, wait,
Yes.
what grade's he in right now?
Yeah, like he's dropping his kids off at this camp. There's no way that's like one of the coaches doing drills. And at Under Armour, these are usually ex-NFL guys. And they're talking, and I hear Kelvion go, "Hey, coach," and he starts yelling off to the side, and he's talking to one of his coaches from South Oak Cliff. And, the coach he gets his attention, and he goes, "Tell him I'm 16. The coach did not believe that Kelvion Riggins is a 16-year-old human being. And his coach had to yeah, he's just a sophomore. Like, he's a baby. And so he's a freak show and just a good player. But, again, I mean, you're talking, I would say 5-6 of the top 50 guys in the country will be in Norman in that 25 class. Like, that's a really solid start.
Well, and I get this question a lot, so I think I should have you address it. But people, and this happened after the quarterback commitment, but people just can't believe that there's not a 2024 commitment. But I can just keep telling them, that's coming. Like, don't worry, it's not like weird or anything. And I know they had some this time last year, but I guess I'm asking you to reassure people that ask me that question all the time, Josh.
Oh, absolutely. Like everything I hear, there's a lot of really good momentum right now. Like you're watching right now, Michigan's kind of on a run. I think they've gotten 2 or 3 quality commitments in the last 24 hours. It just comes in spurts. Like that's just the way it's going to be. And some of it is by design. I mean, it's not accidental that Oklahoma got all those commitments last summer. It's not accidental that back in Bob Stoops' era, it was December to February they landed a bunch of commitments, and then in the summer they landed a bunch of commitments because that's when those guys want to and Brent Venables recruits all the time. Don't misread what I'm saying. He is always working at it. But at the same time, they pour everything they've got into it in the summer and then in December. Like when it's season or spring ball right now, they want to host these guys. They want to do all the stuff they can, but they want it to be about the team. So there is a balance there, but that streak, there's not much longer, in my opinion, that we're going to have to wait and have this conversation. Maybe a couple more pods. We'll have to kind of keep talking people off the ledge, but it's coming. Like it's building. And again, and I told everybody last spring when everybody was getting to this, it was about this point last year when it was like Jackson Arnold, Josh Bates, and I think one more that I'm forgetting.
McCarty. McCarty was in.
Yes, Eric. And so like you knew it was limited. And it was just like you were hearing this stuff behind the scenes, like, just wait. It's going to happen. And it's going to happen. Like, I like the pieces they're putting together. I think this defensive line class for the second straight year could be really special if they can put all the pieces together and it goes the way it's trending right now. So, like I said, just be patient. The one area I'm really interested to see how it plays out is offensive line. And we're talking about Bill Bedenbaugh. It will turn out fine. I just think there's a lot of variables in the way it can go. And running back's kind of the same way, except running back's a little more visible. I think everybody knows OU's got like 6 really good options at running back. It's just a matter of which 2 and possibly a third guy could end up as part of the class.
All right. Real quick, before we get out of here, Bob, I do have a couple questions for you about softball. And we can get some baseball in here too. But so conference play getting ready to start. Has OU faced really all the tough tests? I mean, are we going to see a bunch of run rules moving forward here?
I think you will in Ames, but then you have Texas, which is the mega showdown next weekend.
Right.
I mean,
repeat of the national title.
I mean, that is going to be quite the atmosphere Friday in OKC, then Saturday and Sunday back in Norman. But I mean, you look at some of the wins and you're like, wow, that's even turned out even like Washington, Kentucky. Those wins that you felt good at the time now look even better because those are top 10 wins. So it's been pretty impressive what they've been able to do with the pitching, with the hitting. I mean,
it feels like the hitting's just starting to come alive too.
Yeah.
Like it's been good, but what we saw this last week, it just seemed like the entire lineup is starting to
Jada Coleman is just on another level at this moment. If she's not going like 4 for 4, she's walking 1 or 2 times every single game. She's doing exactly what you need a leadoff hitter to do. And yeah, I mean, they're all sort of finding their groove and they're all sort of embracing their role that, like Sophia Nugent, like people like that, they don't know when they're going to get called, but when they are, they're ready and they come through. And Patty just has that innate ability of just like knowing, okay, this is the matchup I want to get. Even if the numbers don't tell me this should work out, I have a feeling this hitter in this spot can make an impact, and that's exactly what they do.
Will Patty Gasso put a hit out on Michael Turk?
Oh, that is...
And is there? I mean, do you think that there's some? Does that create a little bit of weirdness in the dugout with Grace?
I mean, she played Sunday and she hit a home run, so I don't think it will. But yeah,
it's one of those things though. It's like, okay, is he speaking for her or is he speaking for himself?
Exactly, and that might have to have been addressed. But Grace was back in the lineup throughout.
And if
the
you
course
don't know
of the
what
weekend.
we're talking about, Michael Turk sent out at least one tweet that I saw. Eddie, you think there might have been more?
I was told there were more. I only saw the one that we all saw.
It basically said, interesting decision to not start your team captain.
Right.
And that was quickly deleted.
That's
I don't know,
what
quickly,
I was told,
but,
yes.
But it also seems that Patty was well aware of the tweet or tweets.
Yeah,
Yes.
it sounds like she became aware of it.
She became aware, and the thing with Grace, and the way Patty always described it, is like Grace wasn't well just yet. She was still on the mend, still recovering. You had to sort of like try to figure out what was that saying, what was the context of saying that, and she said after the Florida State game last Tuesday, it's like, I think if all goes well, Grace will be in the lineup in some sort of fashion, and that's exactly what happened. I would imagine now that there would be no hiccups, that Grace Lyons is officially back. I would expect to see her names without any issues. But yeah, that was kind of just not really, sort of wondering what's going on with like Patty and Grace, just like how long is it going to take to get Grace back to where...
Especially when everybody else is playing so well.
Yes, like they didn't miss a beat. They put other people at short Tiara Jennings played a lot of shortstop. It worked out just fine. Q at second base was doing just fine. So they found other answers, and that's what Patty is able to do, every single year, and especially like in this year, if you're not producing, if you're not available, she knows she's got other players that she can call upon who are going to rise up to the occasion every single time.
And to be clear, we never TMZ. This is the first time we've even mentioned this whole thing with Turk. Like, we didn't TMZ it. We didn't make a big deal out of it on the site. But it's just one of those things, like, as big as softball has gotten, it's one of those things that it's
people
drama.
Notice.
It's drama.
Yeah, people notice. At the end of the day, it's probably a fiance just sticking up for,
right.
Needs to get a burner.
No. Needs to stay right there. I like the drama.
So, yeah, that's going to be really interesting. And I will tell you, in the other room right now, I have the photo room set up fully. It's taken me like 2 days to get it all set up. So the T-shirts are going to be online tomorrow. And these are, let me explain what we're doing. We are basically launching a softball NIL war chest, and then we'll go and sign up individual players and have them do things to earn the money that's doesn't take away from the season or the softball or the jobs that they have to do being student athletes. But just something that we wanted to do, and it's because we have the merch shop and the ability to just send stuff out and package things, and Eddie's gotten really good at that, and I've done a lot of that as well. But it's just something we can do, something we like to do. We kind of almost look at it like some of the charity work that we've done in the past, and so looking forward to getting those out there. And the mail guy just ducked his head in. So I would say by this time, Friday, we'll have a bunch of stuff for him to take out.
I want to be able to, can we work it out to where we present the money in like one of those big-ass oversized checks?
Big check. Let's go.
Like
that's what Isaiah Thomas
pitch.
wanted to do for the Tulsa Boys Home. We can do that. I looked into it then, but we can, I don't know though, you can't like just give a giant fund to the team. We have to do like individual deals. So, I don't know if we want to do like 25 giant checks.
Yes. Like on senior night, we bring each person out.
So, looking forward to getting that going. Soonerscoopstore.com. Go check it out. Still got Lindsay Street shirts with spring football here. Never a better time for you to kind of rock those out there. Lots of hats and stuff for you. And I don't know, we'll talk about maybe having a little in-office sale maybe the day before game day or something like that. We're still kind of figuring that out. Or that week, possibly. So, anyway, baseball, Eddie, we sat and watched the Dallas Baptist game a little bit last night. Kind of frustrating to see OU continue to come back, but then not be able to throw strikes on the mound. Although, I mean, it does seem kind of like softball. The bats are starting to come alive for the program.
Yeah, they played well over the weekend. To come back and win 2 of 3 against TCU was obviously a positive step in the right direction to begin Big 12 play. They got a couple weeks here coming up, going to Manhattan this weekend. It's another series that you should be able to go up and win. But, like Aaron Weber's been really good on the back end. I talked to Skip about it on Sunday. I basically asked him, like, is he your closer? And he was like, yeah, I'm able to go to sleep at night knowing he's going to pound the strike zone. And then he comes out last night and walks the bases loaded in the ninth. So it was a bad outing. They, I think, ended up straining like 10 or 11 guys last night, which, you get into these games on a Tuesday night where you're trying to build confidence in guys like a Gray Harrison that gave up the lead in the 7th. Those are the, kind of the risks that you're going to have to take in trying to develop a pitching staff or develop guys that you think you're going to be able to depend on once you get into May and once you get into June into a regional or whatever. So, obviously kind of disappointing the way that they were not able to close that game out on Tuesday night. But in the grand scheme of things, to beat a good TCU club and, especially the way that they bounced back after getting pounded basically on Friday night, 13-4. Come back, win a kind of a pitching duel on Saturday, and then
to a TCU team that they were kind of dicks.
Yeah, there's some animosity there between Sarloos and Skip. I'm not real sure what
was
what
it
that
Saturday
is.
night when they kind of were barking after the game, or was that after Sunday?
It was after Sunday.
Okay, yeah.
Which
did the teams end up shaking hands?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay,
but it was
weird.
It was weird.
Yeah.
It was definitely weird. So yeah, like
Well, there was the kid that got thrown out, right? In the ninth inning, got thrown out of the game for barking about the
he got
pitches.
rung up on a strike on called. It basically looked at it called third, and the assistant got.
Oh, that's
rung.
right. Yeah, he got kicked out.
Then it kind of just trickled down, but it was kind of funny. Hopefully they play each other again in Big 12 tournament or something. Should be pretty good. But talking about OU Texas next weekend in softball. Thursday, Friday, Saturday in Norman over at Eldell, OU Stanford, which is going to be
big
like
time.
probably their biggest non-conference series of the season. So
and Stanford's good this year, right?
Yeah, they're obviously they're usually really good, and I think that they're good yet again. So it'll be a big series over there, and then they get back into Big 12 play after that. But it's kind of is what it is right now. They're trying to develop a bunch of arms, and we talked to Skip about this a couple weeks ago. It's like he's one of the people that thinks like midweek games shouldn't count against RPI, and I know that that's not how that works. But at some point, you have to develop arms,
a deep enough program. Yeah,
but how do you do that if you're tossing them out against the Dallas Baptist on a Tuesday night?
Yeah,
so it's kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't type situation. So, the biggest thing for them right now is they got to find a way to get John Spikerman going. He's batting under 200 right now. And you got to be able to find a way to get him on base because I think everybody knows once you get him on base, he's a pretty, I mean, you saw it in the 8th inning last night. He walks, stole second, stole third, and then got sacrificed over to third, and then they safety squeezed him in and took the lead again, 7-6. So, slowly but surely, I think the offense is starting to come together.
All right. That's going to do it for this week's edition of the Unofficial 40 podcast, unless George has anything he wants to throw out there before we get out of here.
No, I think I pointed out my age enough on this episode, so I'm just going to be silent.
It's not that pointing out your age is the problem. It's pointing out our age is the problem.
Yeah.
Well, since George has brought shame to me in my oldness, I'd want to ask him about his homework. But George, I hadn't really thought about this until we were talking about it on the pod. You are obviously you were watching it last year, and but you could have been prepping for game stuff. You could have been writing stories while you're doing it. I don't know, what have you made okay, I'm going to go back and watch a game a week and really go have you done anything like that or have plans to? I hadn't even thought of it on that level before.
I already actually in the couple weeks that I had off there in between jobs, I went back and rewatched every game.
Okay.
And so I've gone through, and I didn't
like what you see.
No,
Loved
I
it,
don't.
huh?
not at all. But it wasn't like I sat down and watched the 3-hour broadcast version. It's you can find on YouTube the people that put up the quick no huddle version. So I went through and watched those, but especially the bowl game because I think bowl games are usually ones that they try to do maybe some different things in preparation for next year. So I've actually watched the bowl game maybe a couple times, and I actually thought they played really well in that one.
They did.
And so, and you also had a bunch of guys that played in that I think are going to have some serious contributions next year. So yeah, I have done a little bit of homework rewatching the games.
By the way, I'm glad that you tried to haze him there, but neither one of you have turned in your roundtables yet. I'm just saying that.
I thought I emailed mine in.
Yeah.
Oh, did you send it to my Gmail?
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't throw me under the bus.
Okay,
like that.
Josh, I haven't received yours
So
yet.
it's just me that's the shame.
Yes.
Cool. Thanks,
Yes.
George. Could have had a little solidarity there, buddy.
By the way, I'm sitting here watching the live CJ Stroud pro day. They're saying Ohio State pro day. Let's face it. They've got enough other players. It's not just CJ Stroud's pro day. But you can't tell me that this stuff is going to disappear this day here when that Big 12 does the NFL thing, combine at the Star.
I think it's just going to be another opportunity for guys for example, a Deshaun White.
Yep.
He needs to go and do all that stuff. But
or Justin Broyles.
Right, but CJ Stroud, he might throw it all. If for example, if the Big Ten had something like that, maybe he throws it all three, but. Or it just gives you another chance to run the 40 like Eric Gray and Braden Williston run at the Combine. I'm sure they'll run a pro day.
And I've always liked CJ Stroud threw at the Combine and he's doing a pro day. To me, there's nothing wrong with throwing at the Combine if you're a quarterback.
I also think that Big 12 thing, and maybe I'm wrong, but it's more for the schools unlike Oklahoma and Texas,
The Kansas States and the TCUs, yeah. Yeah, I just don't think that the bigger name, the guys that truly are going to get drafted, are going to participate.
No.
And I don't think, maybe pro days at places like Kansas State, I don't even know if they have a pro day. I'm sure they do. Or like Iowa State.
Yeah, I'm sure they do.
Yeah,
They have
think
to.
they have to.
Yeah.
They just don't get a lot of
Guys-
people that go to it, probably.
Am I the only one fairly underwhelmed with the Ohio State indoor facility? Like, that looks very bare bones.
It looks a lot better than USC's.
Yeah, it does look pretty old. I mean, OU's is no great shakes, but it doesn't look that dated.
Yeah. Bob's Mecca comment was strong. Well done, Bob.
I will say USC probably doesn't need an indoor like that.
Yeah.
That would be a waste of money.
You
But
got
it is
Pete
still
Carroll
funny.
standing next to Ryan Day there.
Yep. I do think Stroud's going to go number 1, by the way. I'm pretty sure that's who the Panthers want.
It seems like that. I mean, he's the Vegas favorite now.
Is that Ryan Day right behind?
Yes.
Yes.
There's a Vrabel right there,
Yeah,
too.
Mike Vrabel.
I wonder what the turnout will be at OU's Pro Day in terms of, obviously, they always...
Vrabel's so massive.
Yeah, he's huge. He's also very intense in post-game
I
press
can imagine.
conferences.
Him and Dan Campbell would be just extremely.
I went to his last year when they beat the Broncos, but they played terrible, and he was just hilarious.
Vrabel?
Yes, he's just very intense. But I wonder
Isn't he
what...
the guy that said he'd cut off his dick to win a Super Bowl?
Yeah,
I thought that was
Yes.
badass.
I thought it was Dan Campbell. He probably said
I thought
something.
Vrabel said it.
No, it was Vrabel on PMT, I think.
Oh.
Dan Campbell would probably donate his children. Like that's he feels like the kind of guy that would go above and beyond even the other.
I think
crazy
Dan
people.
Campbell
I
would
don't see
cut
a
off all
problem
his
with that.
limbs just to win a Super Bowl.
Yes.
He'd just be a head and a
He said,
torso.
yeah, he said something about kneecaps, didn't he? He's like breaking kneecaps.
Well, no,
or
that was
something.
he was talking about. They wanted to fight, and when they got knocked down, they would bite your knee, and they couldn't get up. They'd bite your kneecaps off.
Yeah, he's crazy. Anyways, I wonder what the turnout will be at OU's Pro Day in terms of, obviously they'll have a lot of scouts there, but
It won't be like this. I mean,
No,
this is
the
insane.
head coaches there. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I mean you've got to get that kind of turnout. You've got to have those elite.
I mean, those
guys.
are all
Oklahoma's got
scouts.
good
Those are
guys.
scouts everywhere on the sidelines. I mean, my God.
I remember Elway showed up for Baker's and
Yes.
I think Kyler's. I think he was at both of those.
I still think I don't know, Carey. Was Sam's still like the most heavily attended?
A lot of heavy hitters, and I mean
That was like
that was when
crazy.
Mike McCarty was the head coach of the Green Bay
Yeah.
Packers. He was there.
I mean, Baker and Kyler's were both big, but I feel like Sam's
Spagnola was there, obviously. 'cause
Sam's
the
was like the
Rams.
first like event that I remember. Like, holy shit, this is crazy.
Well, and he had all. I mean, and I think largely because he didn't have senior tape to lean on,
Yeah.
like Kyler and Baker did.
That's a good
So they
point.
really
I
wanted
didn't
to see
think
him be
about
healthy.
that.
It was also, and I might be wrong, but wasn't Sam pretty much the consensus number 1 since even during the season that
There
he
was some.
hurt?
There was some of that NFL misinformation, fake out stuff going on. But yeah, he was from beginning to end. He was the guy that was most consistently considered the top overall
People
pick.
forget Baker and Kyler were not
No, Baker
close to
especially.
consensus. I mean,
Nope.
like it was, and really the reason they ended up being number 1 was the two teams that ended up having the number 1 pick fell in love with them.
Well,
Baker stuff was
remember-
crazy because it was just like it went from like, yeah, Baker could maybe be the number 1 pick, and then like 2 weeks later, it's like,
wait a
Baker's
minute.
going to be the number 1
He's the
pick,
number
isn't he?
Well, they did
Yeah.
that. He had that camera crew, and his own mother was like, I don't know what's going to happen, but if he goes number 1, I just don't know that I can believe it. She was basically saying if he went number 1, that would be surprising to even me, his mother.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So I don't know who this is with him that's charting his plays.
Not George Whitfield.
Oh, God. That was Landry Jones had the George Whitfield experience.
We all know, Sue followed Sam and obviously Gerald and Trent. I mean, listen, Ndamukong Suh, Gerald McCoy, Trent Williams, Eric Berry, Russell Okung, and Joe Hayden. That's the top 7 that year. Holy crap.
No screw-ups there.
That's a lot of good NFL football
Well, that's probably why
players, man.
Sam's was so big too. I mean, you had McCoy and Trent.
Oh, sure. That there were so many other guys going through it with him.
And Gresham.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God, It's insane.
I love a good pro day though, where everybody's there. There's nothing better. And Baker's was weird because he was throwing a pass, he'd run to the other side of the field.
Yeah.
Throw a pass, run to the other side of the field.
Winded at the end of it.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, that's going to do it for us. Appreciate everybody listening. We'll be back again next week for another edition with more spring practice under our belt. So looking forward to that. You're listening to the Unofficial 40 podcast from Soonerscoop.com.